Welcome back to the Silly Points podcast. I'm Suraj Srinivasan, and I'm here with Rishi Arjun and Lakshya Jain. And we're going to be recapping or talking about the recent series between England and New Zealand, the two-match series. Pretty interesting, lot to talk about in that on both sides, especially with New Zealand having the World Test Championship coming up. But yeah, as usual, before we go into that, we have Rishi, who is about to brag about something. Take it away if you want.
What am I gonna brag about, Serge? Why don't you
I don't know.
tell me?
You can tell me. All right, I can introduce you and lead you into that. Rishi got another forfeit in his league in San Jose. So yeah,
Was
it's
this
Yeah,
A
solid
division,
play.
B division? What's
B division,
the
B division. Yeah, I got a 2 days ago. 4 for 9.
It wasn't on video, so it doesn't count. But yeah,
congratulations, Mini Rashid Khan.
Thank you. Yeah, I have 4 for 9. Got my first man of the match in a long time in our league. So that was good. That was good. I'm in good bowling form, so I'm pretty happy with that. Our team is now 3 wins in 4 games. So, and we're aiming for that top 2 spot for promotion to A. So that's the goal for now, but it's just a start. Hopefully, it's a good season for all of us. What about you, Lakshya? Any games this weekend?
Well, I was in Hawaii, so
Oh yeah.
I can't say that I played much cricket.
some beach
I
cricket.
did see several cricket wireless stores, but I don't think that's exactly what people are talking about here.
All right,
But
cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's good stuff getting away from pretty much everyone and everything for a week. I did manage to catch the game though, because how could I not? And I think that leads us into what we're going to talk about today, which is the England-New Zealand Test Series, recapping just what happened, just what we thought would happen, and how our predictions stacked up, and what we really think it means both for England and New Zealand moving forward. So, yeah.
I just like to say, my prediction would have been right. It would have been 2-0 New Zealand if the third or fourth day was not rained out first Test match. I think very clearly New Zealand dominated this series, both ball, bat, and especially in the field. The bowlers looked a class apart. They took apart the inexperienced English batting lineup, and they found several new players as well who have stepped up. I mean, man of the series. Let's just start off. Devin Conway.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think any of us even had him in our initial playing 11. We just assumed Tom Blundell was going to open, as he's been doing a fairly good job for New Zealand. But New Zealand took a punt. After seeing Devin Conway's excellent first-class record and his amazing starts in his ODI and T20 career, they gave him a Test debut at Lords, and he responded with a 200 in his first innings and then an 81 in the second Test match. And yeah, he was justifiably rewarded the man of the series.
A lot of people, Chris Silverwood included, have said that England didn't do that well because they had a lot of first choice players out. I'm not too partial to that argument, because here we've got the players that knocked New Zealand, the players that knocked England out of the game were a bloke playing his third Test in Devin Conway and a debutant in Will Young, and then Ajaz Patel, right? None of these guys had extensive experience. And if the argument is, oh, well, England weren't fielding Joss Butler, Jofra Archer, or Ben Stokes. Well, I mean, you could kind of make the same argument for New Zealand, not fielding several of their first choice players. So
you forgot Matt Henry, who is New Zealand's 5th choice pace bowler.
Yeah, Matt Henry ended up bundling out England. Yeah. And it's something also, I think it was the Telegraph brought this up, that the only players in England that acquitted themselves well in this Test match, one of them was Dan Lawrence, who's playing his 4th Test. I mean, at some point, England keep talking about how their players are new, how they're young, etc. But I want to put it this way. Zach Crawley has had 14 Test matches, and he's done exactly one thing of note. He scored that double century. That's it.
Yeah, he averages 20 without that double century. If you take
exactly, this is not good enough. Rory Burns domestically played well overall.
Rory Burns is England's man of the series, so
yeah, not really going to apportion too much blame for those guys. Yeah. But what if we ended up taking a little bit of a bigger look at Ollie Pope, who's been heralded as the next great hope of England for God knows how long, though, and he's done exactly what? Scored one good century and a couple of decent 50s, and he's averaging now about 32. That's not good enough. I mean, if you're saying he's an ex-Joe Root averages 49. Ollie Pope is nowhere near that caliber of becoming a mainstay in England's batting lineup. And if that's the type of player you're relying on, serious questions have to be asked about the consistency. And, I think this brings up some more questions for England in that let's take a look at the top 5 that they fielded in this series, right? Let's take a look at exactly what they did in the second test. They had Burns and Sibley, Crawley, Root, and Pope. That is basically functionally your top 5 for the Ashes.
Yeah, that is. It's just only Stokes is the only one missing, but Pope is still in the top 6 normally.
And of those, you've got 2 huge weak links in Crawley and Pope. And we still don't exactly know how Dom Sibley will truly fare because he's still very new. So if you've got those 2 weak links in Crawley and Pope, you're basically missing 2 class batsmen in your top 5 going into Australia. Now you could say, oh, well, let's just move up Ben Stokes and Joss Butler. Okay, but then that leaves more holes in your 6 and 7. This is not ideal for England here, and they've got a lot of questions they need to iron out here.
Forget Australia. They have a huge series against India coming up, and I think the Indian fast bowlers will be licking their lips bowling to Crawley, Sibley, Pope. They already tortured Pope with spin, but now in this series, Pope's been exposed to a new problem. He's been coming way too far across the stumps, being caught LBW and caught on the move, his head falling over. So now that's another technical weakness that could easily be exposed by the Indian pace bowlers. I think first off, England needs to stop looking too far into the Ashes now. They're not winning the test matches that they're supposed to be playing now. They keep playing B teams. They did this in India. Their rotation policy is just not working. And if they keep going through with this pattern, they're going to lose against India at home. Very clearly. They've already lost this is their first series loss in 7 years since Sri Lanka in 2014. But New Zealand really outplayed them. This series should have been 2-0 if it hadn't been for one day of rain. But England's batting lineup looks very, very weak. Root's not scoring either. So I know Root. It's hard to blame Root. He's done so much caring for them, especially in the Asia tour earlier this year. But he didn't score at all in this series as well.
I'd say it's a bit harsh. He had 2 good 40s. That's not what you need from your captain, but I think there's several batsmen that did worse than Root. And Root is, I think, the one batsman no one has any question marks over. So all things said and done, I think there's more productive things for England to worry about than how can Joe Root find form, because in general, he's been fine.
Yeah. Well, let's also give some credit. Rory Burns was pretty excellent this series. He was England's man of the series.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think we all knew he was going to score some runs. I think we mentioned his preview because he was the most informed batsman from the county championship. Yeah, he was dropped in India, but we know he wasn't going to have to face Ashwin and Akshar Patel and dust bowls anymore. And back at home conditions here, he did fairly well. Sort of an excellent century to rescue England in the first test, and then another 80 in the second test. He played a very poor shot to get out second ball in the second test, second innings, which definitely shows England every batsman still has some issues against when it comes to the moving ball. But Rory Burns was pretty good this series. But outside of that, there's not really any positives from their top 7. James Bracey had a horror start to his test career. I mean, he played out of position, was forced to wicket due to Folks' injury, and they didn't want to pick Sam Billings. So that really also that seemed to have a mental effect on his batting. 2 very poor strokes in his first.
I think by the end, Bracey looked lost. Suraj, what did you think? So I'm curious because I know you've tended to compare in the past when we've talked, you've brought up some pretty good comparisons in the past from, old struggling teams to now. But one thing that caught my eye was, as Rishi said, when Ollie Pope kept stepping across, he looked a little bit like Shane Watson in the later stages of his career. Do you remember Watson shuffling across, getting trapped LBW? It's the same weakness is starting to
similarly, we also saw that with Ross Taylor. While he did have some substantially solid scores with that 80 and then a 23 or something, he was falling over. I believe the commentators were picking on this the entire time. With his struggles at the beginning of his innings and starting his batting, he was always leaning over. There was a tendency that he would drag out, start fishing outside off, and they would bring the ball in and he'd get out LBW. Similarly, Pope had the same thing.
But that's the weakness. Ross Taylor addressed that weakness that weakness
He had
Ross
that.
Taylor had is correlated a lot with his eye issue. He used to have that eye issue, which made his head fall over and then caused it. But once he had that eye operation, that fixed that
It
issue.
was still happening in
And then
the beginning of this match.
it
Yeah.
came back in the first test match, yes, and then
Yeah.
even the second test. But he got through it. He scored a good 80, and he's
It
not.
was a
had that-
struggle to
he's-
watch, though.
It was a struggle, but he has not had that issue for the last 5 years. Ever since that
Yeah.
eye surgery. That's why he's been averaging.
I mean, he's still
90
scoring, so
and
it's
50
like
plus, yeah. So I
exactly.
wouldn't focus too much on Ross Taylor. The difference between
Right.
Ollie Pope and Watson is Watson used to get out to right arm seam bowlers, bringing it in from over the wicket, while Ollie Pope was getting out to left arm pace from over the wicket. So it was more shuffling across than really head falling over. It's a little different,
Right.
you know. I wouldn't really
think-
correlate those two technical issues.
I think when you said there is no positive from like the top 6 or 7. Not 7 included because Dan Lawrence did have a decent knock. But if you look further down the order, Mark Wood, proving that he has the
Oh, he's
ability
the
to
number
stay
3.
in.
New number 3, Mark Wood, right?
New number, yeah, exactly.
New number
yeah,
3,
so
I think,
far.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know who's going to bat number 3 in England's next Test match. I have no clue.
I think we do know who it can't be.
I mean,
It can't
It can't be Zach Crawley.
Bairstow could come back.
They have options. There's calls for Adam Lyth. There's calls for Dawid Milan.
Could Lawrence move up to 3? Lawrence move up to 3. Stokes and Butler back in.
I mean, Stokes will be 5. Butler will be
Yeah.
7. So 6 can only be between Pope and Lawrence. And
right. So if you keep
based on
Pope and then
current
move
form,
Lawrence to 3.
But based on current form, Lawrence would get 6 over Pope.
Yeah, but traditionally Pope is like he's been in the team prior to Lawrence, right? So I don't think they'll
He's
shift
been in
him
the team
around too
prior,
much.
and he's failed for a while now.
Fair.
He hasn't scored now. He hasn't really done much since that breakthrough South Africa series, which was pre-Corona. That's not 1.5 years ago. So he can't be meriting form anymore.
I think there's a danger of England turning Ollie Pope, as talented as he is, there's a danger of turning him into the next Graham Hick or Mark Ramprakash. They don't have him sort out his form a little bit sooner.
Yeah. I do think Ollie Pope has a good game for Australia.
He does.
Conditions. I actually thought he would score the series. I thought his weaknesses were going to spin purely, but I did not feel. I thought he was a very technically astounding batsman and did have falling over issues, but seemed to be exposed this series. But yeah, enough about the England's top 6. We can move on to the England bowling, which is okay. You know, Jimmy and Broad didn't have too much luck this series. Broad ended up bowling a lot better in the second test. Ollie Robinson had a great debut test match. Absolutely brilliant with both bat and ball. But the problem of not having Ben Stokes in the team was England were either forced to pick 4 fast bowlers or pick 3 they had to either pick 4 pure fast bowlers and leave out a spinner. But if they wanted to bring a spinner in, they would only have 3 fast bowlers. And
Stokes gave them that 4th option.
So
they could
Jack Leach,
might it be
another series where Jack Leach just warms the bench after being so excellent in Asia?
I think there's a good argument at this point for England seriously wondering whether they might be well served by bumping Dan Lawrence up a little bit in the order, dropping Zach Crawley, and see Butler and Stokes replace Crawley and Bracey, correct? Right. I think that's pretty easy slot out.
Stokes is 5.
Stokes is 5. What I'm thinking is, might it make sense for them to bring in Chris Wokes at some point? Because Wokes overall, it's not as he's done worse as a batsman than any of these guys. And he gives a little bit more in bowling and makes sure that you don't leave that slot scarce by any means.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, Wokes obviously will make the team. He's not in the squad because of the IPL quarantine rules or whatever, why England have rested half the players. But I think if Wokes plays, he should slot in at 7. And that will allow England to then play. Well, actually, I don't think Wokes should play it at 7. They should play one more batsman, then have Wokes at 8, and then they could play 2 other fast bowlers and then a spinner. So then you have 4 pace bowlers. Wokes, probably Jimmy Broad, and then Stokes. And then this is looking at the India series, so I'm looking at seaming.
So you're saying drop Wood instead?
I don't think Wood will play against India. I think they're going to rest him. I mean, I don't think any of the England fast bowlers are going to play 5 test matches in a row against India, so it'll be rotated all around.
Considering Archer's back,
they
you
don't
have
need to
the
play
ability.
4 fast bowlers plus Stokes. That's just a waste. You need a
Yeah.
spinner in your team. We saw Ajaz Patel get good wickets in this test match, just being a proper orthodox spinner. Jack Leach needs to play in this England team. England's not like the worst place to bowl spin in the world. There is wickets on offer if you are a good spin bowler who can land it and turn it at least one way.
Shane Warne had the most successful series of his life in England.
Yeah.
I think there's this huge notion that England
England
is
in
not
line
good.
in England.
Yeah, there's a huge notion that England is not good for spin. That's not true. England could be excellent for pace, but that doesn't mean it's not good for spin. And when the batsman gets set in, the steady diet of right arm over the wicket is not going to do it for you.
Yes.
You need that variety. You need that angle. You need that change. And look, I've been a proponent of Joe Root's bowling and it kicking on, but he can't be your lead spinner.
He cannot be a test match leading spinner. Maybe he could be a second spinner in ODI cricket, but not ways.
He is a second spinner in ODI cricket, and you know what? He's good at it. But in test matches, he's a type of spinner who should be bowling 5-6 overs in innings just to give everyone a break, maybe, and get the new ball on faster. That's the type of bowler he is.
Yeah, like the 85 to 90 mark. That's when he should bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, Dan Lawrence too has a decent off break as well. Got Will Young out, denied him a century.
Yeah, poor guy. But the ultimate point is just that this is not something that should be. You really shouldn't be having Joe Root as your lead spinner here.
Jack
that's just not.
Needs to play. If not Jack Leach, Moeen Ali, one of these two needs to play. You need a specialist spinner in this team.
I
don't think that costed England the series though.
It didn't. And I think let's move to New Zealand because New Zealand really were the better team by far here. There was absolutely nothing, in my opinion, that you could say New Zealand lacked in this series.
I think New Zealand have caused so many headaches now for themselves. Who on earth are they going to pick for the World Test Championship final?
So that's an interesting conversation. Suraj, what do you think? If you were, let's say you were the New Zealand selector.
Yeah.
So let's recap this thing. Remember, New Zealand have core fast bowlers. First choice fast bowlers have been Wagner, Southey, Bolt, and Jameson. And
that's probably set in stone.
That's their 4 fast bowlers when they don't play a spinner. Ajaz Patel has come in and bowled extremely well. He's definitely ousted Mitchell Sanders, the lead spinner in the New Zealand team. Now Matt Henry has come in, taking 6 wickets, was man of the match in the second test match. Then there's 2 all-rounders in DeGrandome and Daryl Mitchell, who've been batting at 7. Who is that bottom 5 in that New Zealand team for the World Test Championship final? Which fast bowlers are you going to pick? Knowing that all of them were excellent this series. Bolt, Southey were good. Jameson was good. Wagner was great.
Bolt and Wagner picked themselves.
I think Bolt, Wagner, Southey all picked themselves. Southey, swing bowler in England, you cannot.
I think the only difference, the only conversation that we should have is picking DeGrandome versus your extra pace bowler. In that sense, so you're sort of picking between Granholm and Jameson, essentially.
I think Jameson.
I think
Jameson stays in. But,
his batting is good enough. Jameson's batting is
he can bat at 7.
If Jameson bats 7, okay, so do you go? You have 4 fast bowlers already, so then you can't pick Henry. Then you pick Ajaz Patel.
Exactly.
As a spinner, especially because we're looking against India. India's going to have 2 spinners, so you want to have at least 1 spinner on a team. So Ajaz Patel has to play, but that means no Matt Henry in the team.
Right.
I think that's okay because here's the thing: Jameson gives something that the rest of these guys, that Jameson gives something that may not necessarily be there with a lot of other folks. Jameson gives something. He gives you 15, 20 extra runs per innings over Matt Henry as a batsman. And he gives a much more, look, what does Matt Henry really provide that none of these other guys do?
I'll tell you what Matt Henry has. A PTSD on the Indian batsman. That's the only reason. That
doesn't count.
What he did to them in the World Cup semifinal. I mean, I don't have Matt Henry in my final 11 either, but it'll be very unfortunate for him to miss out. But
yeah,
he's not been part of the New Zealand's rise to number 1.
Jameson has something interesting in that in England, he can bowl at a full length and still get the ball to rise up to your knee roll.
Yeah.
That's something that makes things very uncomfortable because driving becomes a little bit harder. The ball comes up.
And his record against India.
It's fantastic.
Destroyed India in both the Test matches and ODIs when they came, he was the man of the series in that.
Absolutely agreed.
So I think the only thing is I think the all-rounder is probably going to have to go for New Zealand. They probably have to shorten their batting lineup a little bit just to bring in the spinner and still play their 4 fast bowlers. But Jamieson is a solid number 7. Wagner, Saudi are not mugs with the bat either, and even Bolton.
Saudi can bat. Saudi has the second most number of 6s in Test cricket.
Yes, and then Ajaz Patel hit a 20 in one of the games,
okay, let's not stretch it. Ajaz Patel said he could barely see the ball.
Okay, but let's compare this to the Indian tail. Okay, it's better than Shami, Bumrah, Shiraj, even Ishan. Dude,
Ishan too. Yeah.
Their number 11 is better than India's number 8. So
okay, yeah. So that's fair, right? So what do we got? We got Trent Bolt at 11, Ajaz Patel at 10, Wagner at 9, Saudi at 8, Jamieson at 7.
That's a solid tail. So I don't think they have to worry about losing the.
Yeah, and I think Jamieson might be weaker than the average Test number 7, but Saudi and Wagner are certainly stronger than the average Test number 8 and 9. So it ends up making up in the difference.
And this is a Test match. You need your top 6 to win you.
Yeah, if you're relying on your 7th and 8th batsmen to win you matches, it's not. You're probably doing something wrong. So let's go back to their top 6 because that's going to have a huge headache for them.
New Zealand.
Yeah.
I think the top 6 picks himself. I think it's just Will Young is going to have to miss out. It's
unfortunate.
It's very unfortunate, but he's just been brought in because he's replacing the best player in his country. Yeah. So it's going to be Latham Conway. Conway, unbelievable start to his career, and he's one of the most fascinating talents. And I think he's player we're going to watch for the next decade. I hope. Then Kane at 3, Ross Taylor 4, 5 Nichols, and then 6 is Watling. But if Watling's injury doesn't. If Watling doesn't recover from his injury, which would be very unfortunate because
they'll have Blundell, right, as backup.
And Blundell will be the keeper, but I really, really hope Watling comes back because this is going to be essentially his final Test match. He already has missed one of his farewell Test matches.
I think he's cleared. He was at training today.
So he was at training today. Okay, cool. Good to know. Yeah.
So we're saying Blundell misses out then.
Yeah, Blundell's going to play after the World Test Championship, right? He's going to become the new New Zealand wicketkeeper anyways.
It's awfully unfortunate for Blundell to miss out, but yeah, I guess I could see it. I mean, it's BJ Watling. You can't really drop him for the World Test Championship final. He's still their number 1 choice.
Yeah. And it's his last Test match, obviously. So Blundell has a long future ahead if he takes the opportunity once Watling retires anyway. So there's still a pathway for all these players to come back.
Yeah, but I think it's pretty straightforward. They sort of picked themselves the top 6, and then we had the conversation about pacers and spinner. Ajaz Patel, he probably slots in over Santner, especially
I think
considering his performance.
Santner's not a Test spinner. He's never been a Test spinner, to be blatantly honest. He doesn't even have a 3-wicket. He hasn't picked up a 3-wicket haul in 5 years. And Ajaz Patel, in all conditions, is a more attacking bowler. Santner only has played over Patel due to his batting, but New Zealand have 2 bowlers who are already very good batsmen in Jamieson and who was our number 8? Saudi. So they don't really need that extra batting ability from Santner.
Also, I think in general in Test matches, yes, the thing you're trying to do is you're trying to, add to your team's runs above replacement to win you games, but you shouldn't be picking bowlers for their batting ability unless their bowling already clears that threshold. And the gap between Mitchell Santner and a good Test match bowler is so high that I don't think you can reasonably justify taking him over Ajaz Patel just because he adds 10, 15 extra runs to the bat, because he loses you more than that with the bowl. Yeah, Santner cannot turn the ball.
Mitchell Santner's bowling average is, I think it's
45.
It's like same as Joe Root's. So we're really looking at a part-time spinner.
Yeah, Mitch Santner is a batsman who can bowl a bit in test matches. Yeah. In ODIs and T20s, it's a completely
one of the best spinners in the world. One of the best finger spinners in the world. Yes.
I think they were showing some statistics and just the heat map of where the ball was landing and reaching to the stumps, and compared Ajaz Patel versus Santner, and there was like a big difference of how many, like the percentage of balls that were actually hitting the stumps. It was somewhere like under 10% for Santner.
Map, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then it was above like 25, like 40% or something for Ajaz Patel. So even that difference is, that proves a lot.
Yeah, I mean, Santner bowls in ODI length in Test matches, and that's not going to do it because in Test matches, no one's looking to step out and hit you over mid-wicket. So It just doesn't
Tanner's a
cut it.
very clever bowler at restricting batsmen, but you don't have to restrict batsmen to get them out.
I think the way I put it is Santner's skill set is not that high as a bowler, but he's one of the smartest players you can find. The trouble is in test matches, as a finger spinner, that's not often enough to compensate. If you cannot turn the ball, if you cannot flight the ball, going wicket to wicket isn't at the ODI island isn't going to get you too many wickets.
It's kind of like watching Jadeja and Krunal Pandya bowl in a test match. Jadeja's kind of like Ajaz Patel is, and Mitch.
Yeah, Jadeja turns the ball a lot. Like he can turn the ball quite a bit. Yeah, and I think with Mitch Santner, it's the classic case of this guy in theory has is a very attractive proposition because he is a lead spinner in ODIs. If you could just translate that form over to test matches, you got yourself a really class all-rounder who could save you a spot in the team. But reality is his bowling just can't segue into test cricket like some others, we've seen. It just isn't good enough. And I think credit to New Zealand for realizing that, because there's a lot of teams that would have stuck with it and tried to make it work because it's just too attractive of a proposition to not give another shout to.
Oh, I don't know about that. He got injured. That's why he got taken out of the team.
No, I know. But I think it's quite clear New Zealand of late have been, New Zealand haven't necessarily been wedded to the Mitchell Santner has to play in the team experiment is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, because they don't play a spinner at home.
That's fine. That's what I'm saying. That's fine. There is a notion in a lot of teams when they pick them to say, we need this spinner. We need him there because you play test matches with a spinner and this guy can bat, right? Yeah. Mitch Santner, in theory, makes perfect sense to any team playing anywhere. And if he could translate his ODI form over. New Zealand say, no, he's not actually that good compared to what we could get, the value we could get out of some of our other players. So,
there are more attractive spin options in New Zealand who have played for them in overseas test matches, especially in Asia. There's Will Somerville, there's Nathan Astle, but they tend to go for safety when it's New Zealand conditions.
Nathan Astle? I think you mean Todd.
Sorry. Should I just re-say that point?
Nah, it's fine. Sure. Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
There are more attractive spinners in New Zealand banks such that they have tended to play overseas, especially in Asia, like Will Somerville and Todd Astle. But they've tended to go with Mitchell Santner at home because he's a safety. He's fairly economical and he can bat, and they don't really rely on spinner to take wickets. But I think now they're seeing in conditions that are more favorable to spin that Ajaz Patel is definitely the future of their team. But yeah, I think we've talked about Mitch Santner versus Ajaz Patel. I don't think this is going to have a huge impact on the World Test Championship final, anyways.
No, considering won't even play. Anyways,
attack. But let's talk quickly about England. So now England's next assignment is also going to be against India. Obviously, New Zealand will play India on Friday in the ultimate test match battle. But what is England's future team for this India series, assuming they try to put a full strength squad?
So let's just make it clear. Jofra Archer isn't returning for this series. No way.
If it was, I wouldn't be picking Archer even if he was fit for the series.
I would, but let's not get into that because it's a moot point. He's not healthy. He's not going to play.
I think if you're playing against India, I think Curran and Wilkes have to play. I think just based on what Curran did last time, he has to play. So and then
I think England have a choice to make with Sam Curran here, and I think they need to make it fast. What do you want him to be? Because he has all the talent in the world, but at test level, you cannot continue this half in, half out policy. You can't continue batting him at 7 or 8 and expecting him to blossom as a batsman and then give him 10, 12 overs in innings and say, that he's an all-rounder. I think you've got to make...
I disagree with you. I'm completely fine if he should bat 8 and bowl 10 overs. He did that perfect. He's done that perfectly well in his test career. Why stop that?
It's because working. The thing is, Sam Curran is a much better player than that. Right now, what England have him at is a specialist, not a specialist. They have him as a bits and pieces player who can, influence the games in the right conditions, obviously with favorable assistance. But Curran has worked on his bowling a lot. He's added some pace to it. We've seen it in the IPL. We've seen it in ODI cricket and Test cricket. We've seen in the Australia series what he can do with the bat. We've seen him bat at 3 for Surrey. I think at some point, maybe not this series, but at some point in the future, England need to figure out just what they want from Sam Curran long term. He's 22. He's too good of a talent to waste away as a bits and pieces. We kind of you do a bit of everything type of player. He could be their next Ben Stokes if they manage him properly. They've
See,
just
the,
got to
the bits and
give him the
pieces
chance for
argument
that.
I feel is more applicable to like the ODI cricket scene for Sam Kerr at least. In Test match cricket, if he's bowling well for the 12 overs, you can let him bowl more if necessary. But
It's
if
not
he's able to
that.
like
It's
take the
not.
wickets and bowl well in 12 overs, just leave him.
And
Fine.
because England play, if you play 4 fast bowlers, nobody's going to be bowling 20 plus overs anyways. Especially if it's on a green top where you're not even going to be batting for that long. So 10, 12 overs is completely fine. He got wickets in the last in every test series he's played at pretty good. He has a pretty fairly good average, and his batting is the bonus. To be honest, he offers something different. He's the only left arm swing bowler in the team, which is why I don't think Kern is good enough to bat top 6 yet. I think he bats extremely well with the tail, and he's a very aggressive batsman. So he should be there at the 7-8 position, probably coming in after Wokes, and he should be bowling. He's the difference in the England bowling attack because he's the one left arm pacer they have. So
It does
maybe in
sound
the
like
future,
England are going a little bit more with his
we can go with
bowling.
what you're saying about playing him. But in this India series, I'm using him in that bits and pieces role you're having because that's how he was man of the series last time. If I'd gladly play bits and pieces roles if I got man of the series against India.
I mean,
In
that's
my
fair.
mind, I
You know,
see it as go ahead.
go on, Serge.
No, I in my mind I see like the four pacers for England being Stokes, Anderson, Broad, and then you have that last rotation spot between Wokes, Archer if he's healthy, and then Curran.
What
And
about
that's the
Wood?
rotation spot. And Wood for that spot as well.
Okay, so it's a
So
5-match series. So
right,
I'm
exactly.
Everyone's going to
very
play it.
confident Anderson Broad are not playing all 5.
It's
That
not
rotation system
possible.
didn't work though.
No,
Well, but
it's
the thing
not
is,
bad.
Anderson and Broad just aren't. And James Anderson can't play 5 test series any longer that
I'm
quickly.
sure he
His
can,
body,
but
he's
yeah.
38. He's
He
had
can't.
so many side strain.
In India, he was amazing, but he played 2 out of the 4 tests.
Yeah.
She only played 1 out of 2. So they are
Anderson hasn't played that volume of games recently, and the reason for that is because he's got so many side injuries, rib injuries, strains, sores. I mean, he's 39.
Yeah. So, but then Mark Wood cannot play 2 test matches in a row, and they're going to preserve him for Australia. And I don't think you need Mark Wood in these English conditions against an Indian team. Against India, you need to seam bowl. You need.
I would push back, and I would say that on the flatter tracks, there will be a couple. On the flatter tracks, Mark Wood needs to be there.
I'm going to be shocked if England put out a flat track for India after what happened in earlier this year in India and what happened 3 years ago. I think we're going to expect green tracks, way greener tracks than we did in the New Zealand series, because England are going to go for the win. They're not going to experiment here, and it's going to be seaming wickets the entire series.
I'm not sure that England go just with that. There is always this obsession in England with mimicking what they'll see in the Ashes for good prep. I think we will see at least one somewhat flatter than usual wicket in England. And I think in that one, Mark Wood will be the point of difference bowler.
Okay, but then so then that match Mark Wood might get rotated in. But if I'm looking at the team right now, so Burns and Sibley will still open. I don't know who they have at number 3. I think there are a couple options. I think England should look at Adam Lyth again. Has been doing very well.
What?
Yes, he's been doing really well in first class cricket for the last 3 years, and he failed for England 6-7 years ago. I don't think you could just end his career like that. He's been opening for Yorkshire. I think he's averaging.
I think they bring back Dawid Malan.
That was going to be my next topic. Dawid Malan, who was excellent in the Ashes down under last time, has been scoring a lot this season as well. I think he's another option they could look at. The only thing is, I don't know Dawid Malan keep at 3. Root's not going to go to 3, so Malan can't go back to his position.
Root shouldn't be going to 3.
So if Root's 4 and 5, if Root is 4 and Stokes is 5, you have
Malan bats at 3 for Middlesex.
Okay,
for Yorkshire now. He's moved clubs, but I think Malan would end up going at 3 if they call him back in, because Ben Stokes is 5, and I don't think he's going to move from there. Joss Butler is 6.
That depends. Will they play? If they play an extra batsman,
All right, actually 7. Yeah, well, depends really. But yes, Butler
in play. Then I think Butler should go 6, Wokes 7, Curran 8, and then you fit 2 fast bowlers and Jack Leach. It may because in India you'll play Moeen Ali. So either between Leach and Moeen Ali for that one spot, and then Anderson Broad, and then maybe
is best not in the conversation.
No, I don't think so.
I really don't think so. Dom Bess has had an absolutely horrid time at test level. I don't think he's ready yet again. I
I
mean,
mean, he had a good county season.
he had
averaging
half a
40.
good county season.
It's averaging 43 in the county season right now with the ball.
Yeah.
Moeen Elliott didn't do anything. Moeen Elliott didn't deserve to be dropped from that India series anyways. He had a great test match. And I think
Well,
with his record
technicalities, he wasn't really dropped per se as he was sent
Yeah, I
back
know.
home
I
for
don't want-
workload, man.
I don't want to talk about that. We discussed that in a previous podcast, so that's why I didn't want to say that. But he had a great test match, and he has a great record against India. So I think he definitely might merit a spot over Jack Leach. But yeah, it'll be between Moeen Elliott and Jack Leach. So, but I think the real things only to debate are through who bats 3 and who bats 6.
Who bats 3 for England? I think it should be Dawid Malan. I don't think Crawley's good enough. I think they've tried this enough. And I think you could make an argument for Dan Lawrence at 3, but I don't think he's ready.
But then, because if Kern and Wilkes play, I don't think Dan Lawrence can play at 6. I think the Butler has to go to 6.
And yeah, and it'll be harsh, but then Dan Lawrence wouldn't be in the 11.
Yeah, so then Dan Lawrence is your backup batsman.
Yeah, that's fine with me. I mean, I think it's a long series.
England have not indicated that we're going to pick Milan, though. This is just our hopes.
Silverwood has said as much in a press conference that they're considering it.
They're considering, okay, then yeah, Milan can come to 3, Root 4, Stokes 5, Butler 6, Wokes, Curran 7, 8. Are we down with that plan?
I think that's good.
And then Anderson Broadlead. Either if Moinelli plays, then he'll obviously go to 7, and then if not, then Leach and Broad Anderson. That's probably the England team for the rest of the English summer. Obviously, you have to have changed a lot of that team for the Ashes. I wouldn't be picking Wokes. I wouldn't be picking both Anderson and Broad, and probably be looking at options like Archer, Wood, Stone, even. But that's a conversation for the future.
Awesome. Yeah, I think we've covered everything for the most part, and the future test match. Yeah, hope you guys enjoy.
Just a quick thing. Did we all predict 2-0 New Zealand for this series?
We did.
Nobody said 1-1, right?
No.
All right, cool. It was 1-0, but I think it should have been 2-0 if it hadn't been for rain. That's like,
I don't know.
I think I had actually said 1-0, but I can't recall.
No, no one said rain.
Oh, no. I said 2-0. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So are we done with this? Are we done with this assumption that New Zealand can't play overseas? Let's just change that New Zealand can't play in Australia now. It's New Zealand can play overseas, right?
Yeah, they can play overseas just fine.
Yeah, it's just Australia they suck in.
And you know what? That was a different New Zealand team that couldn't play in Australia also. I think they did get a little bit, obviously they weren't very good then, but I think this team is a good deal better than the one that lost 3-0 in Australia so convincingly.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I just wanted to get that rumor out of the way.
All right. Thanks, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Like the video, subscribe also. We're at 99, so try and just get it past 100. That'd be awesome for subs. But yeah, thanks. We'll see you in the next video. We'll be doing a World Test Championship